Hi, this is Imre Galambos, Professor of Chinese at the University of Cambridge. And this video is about finding and viewing Dunhuang manuscripts using the IDP website. This is of course relevant to those who are working on Dunhuang manuscripts, or Buddhist studies in general, or some other aspect of pre-modern Chinese culture. And although you may have been using the IDP website for some time, there might be still something in this video that is useful for you. So if you're interested in this, keep watching. Oh, and please remember to hit the subscribe and like buttons to help the channel grow, and to be notified when new videos come online. The Dunhuang manuscripts are one of our most important sources for the study of just about any aspect of pre-modern history, society, and culture, both in China and in Central Asia. They have provided first-hand material that radically changed the course of entire fields, and also led to the decipherment of previously undeciphered languages. Having been originally discovered in 1900 and made known to the world at large around 1908, the manuscripts have been studied ever since, and so by now there's been over a century of research on them. But the large-scale digitization of manuscripts in the past 20-some years made looking at them much more convenient. This digitization was pioneered by the International Dunhuang Project, that is IDP, and the manuscripts have been made available through their website. Actually, I myself have worked for IDP for 10 years before coming to Cambridge, and I'm glad that I've had the opportunity to work with the project and of course with the manuscripts themselves. During its lifetime, the website has undergone several major changes and is likely to change again in the near future, but probably a large portion of what I'm going to say here will still remain valid. Okay, so how do you find a manuscript on the website? Let's look at a concrete example. Unfortunately, in the last 2-3 years, the site has been relatively unstable and has been frequently down, which means that you cannot access the material. Typically, this always happens in the worst possible moment, when you're frantically trying to finish a presentation for a talk or a class, and then all of a sudden you cannot access the manuscripts. Then you have to wait for a day or so until the server is restarted and the site goes live again. But when it is up, this is what you do. Say you want to find manuscript S3510. We type this press mark S3510 into this little search window on the left and press enter. Then the results of your search appear. In this case, you only have one search result because you've searched for a specific press mark. Actually, the whole press mark is not S3510, but OR.8210/S3510. So S3510 is just an abbreviation commonly used in scholarship. So you can access the manuscript by clicking on the thumbnail. Make sure you do not click on any of the other links, such as the British Library or Dunhuang Mogao, because they link to information about the library or the Mogao caves. So click on the thumbnail itself. This opens the manuscript's own page, with a row of thumbnails for every shot of the manuscript, and some other information. So you can click on any of the thumbnails to look at the corresponding image below. And this is how you navigate through the whole scroll. Above this larger image are 3 links. The first one is Rotate Image, and it is supposed to rotate the image by 90 degrees so you can look at it sideways. But this function has not been working for a few years now. I assume because it is a plugin and the license has not been updated. Of course, if you desperately need to look at the image sideways, you can always turn your head to the side, or turn your computer, or better yet, download the image onto your own computer and then open it up in an image viewer that allows you to rotate it. The other link is the large image, which is really important, because this is how you can look at the larger image of the manuscript. This will open in a new window, and what I immediately do is to maximize this window so I can look at the manuscript more conveniently. And here in this window, there's a rotate image link as well, but it doesn't work here either. But the other link is stitched image. If you click on it, it will open the whole scroll in its entirety as one image. So you can see what the whole manuscript looks like. Of course, this is a bit of an illusion because this large image has been stitched together digitally from individual shots rather than the other way around. But this was done with care and skill, so it does resemble what the actual manuscript looks like. And it is a very useful tool. I would suggest to use it every time, so you can get an idea of the whole object rather than just individual pieces of it. And you can also look at the other side of the manuscript by clicking on the Show Other Side link, which is just as useful. Back on the manuscripts page, you have some information in these little areas here. You learn what the form of the manuscript is. In this case, it is a scroll, and also its size. The numbers for the dimensions are actually a little bit tricky because they might not always be accurate. The images usually also include a digital ruler. For some reason, the images of this particular manuscript do not, but almost all others do. So if you measure the dimensions of a manuscript with a digital ruler by overlaying it several times, the results do not always match the dimensions given here next to the manuscript image. But the digital ruler is actually quite accurate. So the problem must be with these numbers here. And I think they must come from Lionel Giles's 1987 catalog of the Chinese manuscripts in the Dunhuang collection. If you look up this manuscript there, it is marked as being 36 3/4 feet long. And if you convert that to centimeters in Google, it comes to 1120.14, which is exactly the number that you have here. The .14 at the end is a giveaway that it is a result of a conversion, as it would have no significance in real life, especially the final 4. In any case, the height of 26.8 centimeters is not in Giles, so it may be a more recent and perhaps more accurate measurement. Some manuscripts also have information in the catalog section here. This one does not. And the bibliography only contains Giles's catalog. This, of course, does not mean that nobody else has written about this manuscript. Finally, at the bottom, we have a note that this sutra was digitized under the sponsorship of the Beishan Foundation. And this goes back to the so-called Sponsor a Sutra initiative, as part of which you were able to pay £50 or more to help the digitization costs for a specific manuscript. This is like having the names of sponsors on bricks or just on the wall in libraries. So this was a manuscript from the Stein collection at the British Library. Let's look at another example, and this time we choose a manuscript from the Pelliot collection of the Bibliothèque Nationale in Paris. So the press mark of these manuscripts is usually Pelliot Chinois plus a 4-digit number. For example, manuscript Pelliot Chinois 2735. These press marks are typically abbreviated in scholarship as P2735, but this is not the official press mark, which is why if you type that into the search box, you're not going to find anything. Instead, you need to type Pelliot Chinois 2735. A shortcut would be to type in just Chinois 2735 or even S2735. And here the S is not the same as the S of the Stein manuscripts, but the last letter of the French word Chinois. So you need to add a space after the S here. If you type this in, you get the result, and then you can click on it and look at the manuscript. Now, this is typically much slower than for the Stein manuscripts, and the reason for this is that there are several IDP websites. There's one in each of the largest holding institutions. That is the institutions that house large quantities of Dunhuang manuscripts. So the British Library has one website. We could call this the project's main website. And the Bibliothèque Nationale has another one, which is in French and sits on a server at the BNF in Paris. So when you search for a manuscript using the English side of IDP, you're doing this through a website that is physically located in London. But it has to pull the images from the website that sits in Paris at the BNF, which creates a bit of a lag. Interestingly, this is not because internet pages in France load any slower, but because the two IDP websites need to communicate with each other, and this happens a bit slower than what would be ideal. But if you use the French website to look at the Pelliot manuscripts, it is very fast, even if you're looking at it from London. For the same reason, if you look at the Stein manuscripts using the French website, it will be just as sluggish, even if you're accessing the site in London. In fact, you could be sitting at the British Library, but if you're using the French website to look at the Stein images, it's going to be quite slow, even though the manuscripts are in the same building as you. In any case, let's enter here and look at the manuscript's information, which is much the same as with the Stein manuscript. One major difference is that you have neither large images nor stitched ones. These are simply not available for the Pelliot material. And of course, you cannot see the full manuscript in this little window, so your best bet is to right-click and then open it up in a new tab, where you can view it much more conveniently. Alternatively, you could go to the BNF's own website, which is called Gallica, and access the manuscript there, and you will be able to view the manuscript at a higher resolution. But even here on the IDP website, the images are still quite good, and they are convenient to look at. Here in these areas to the left of the manuscript image, you have information from the French catalogues of the Dunhuang manuscripts. These are very detailed and include information about the text as well as codicological description, and it is extremely useful to have this information right here. So this is how you can find manuscripts on the IDP website. Of course, for this, you need to know the press mark. Without that, it's very difficult to find a manuscript. I will put up a separate video about how you can find a manuscript if you don't know the press mark, or how you can find a text that you know is in the Dunhuang manuscripts, but you don't know in which manuscript. In any case, I hope this was useful. Let me know if you have any questions, or just write your experience with using these sites. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.